Welcome to The Difference Makers, a Paladin Security podcast. We'll take you inside the world of security and share firsthand expertise from our industry professionals. Join us as we dive into everything security and explore the journeys of those who go above and beyond to make our world a safer and friendlier place.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Difference Makers. This time we had the pleasure to talk to Director of Operations at Paladin Security Calgary, Shane MacDonald. At a very young age, Shane clicked with the world of law enforcement, so after graduating, he pursued a career in security and then joined the Calgary Police Service. After a 26-year career in law enforcement, he came back to security with Paladin. Among many other interesting topics, he talks about how his experience in security helped him transition into law enforcement, some of the key transferable skills you can learn, specialized training courses you can take, and his expert advice for anyone out there looking to join the police force or build a fulfilling career in security. Well, hey Shane, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome to The Difference Makers. It's such an honor to have you here. And I guess first and most important question, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just dive right into it. I want to talk a bit about your story because I think you have such an interesting background. I think you went into the security world, then joined the law enforcement path, and then went back to security after 26 years. But take me back to the beginning, because a little bird told me that it was somewhere around when you were in 10th grade that something with law enforcement kind of clicked with you. So just walk me through that path of yours.
Yeah, happy to do it. You know, it's interesting because, after spending so many years within the industry, this opportunity to reflect is one that is exciting for me because, it is exactly as you spoke, is that in grade 10, it was my connection. I was, I had the fortune of having a law class that I connected closely with one of my instructors. And she, I think, really, planted the seed that this was something that could be a career orientation for myself, as well as just a desire and a passion to be involved in it. So there I was at the age of 16. And I don't know if you had a similar situation, but I had myself one of those high school books where you scribble in what your goals and aspirations were. And grade 10, my goal and aspiration was to join law enforcement and be a police officer.
Oh, that's amazing. And now talk to me about what happened next. You went to school, you did security for a bit.
Yeah, so absolutely. So finished, obviously achieving my high school diploma. I took a couple of years to see the world a little bit, do a little bit of traveling, a little bit of work, expand some of my life experience and skills. And at that time, as I say, it was a college and entered in the police science program. It's now Mount Royal University. So it's moved on to a 4-year diploma, 4-year university degree opposed to a 2-year diploma program. I came out of Mount Royal College a couple of years later, and at that time I joined this very, very small local security company called Active Security here in Calgary. I was assigned down to a building down in what was smaller downtown Calgary at that point. That's for sure. I think we were sitting somewhere around 750,000 people, and we're now sitting at about 1.8 million. So that takes you back to what downtown would look like. But entered into uniform security work in 1988. I spent a fair bit of time there for about a year and a half, I guess it would be. And from there, I transitioned into retail security. From there, I jumped in and I actually entered over into the loss prevention world. One of the main anchors in that building at that time was a store called Eaton's, which is obviously now since been disbanded, but entered into the loss prevention world working for for Eaton's. And then at that point, 1990, I applied for the Calgary Police Service and was accepted in September of 1990.
Oh, wow. I guess after 26 years, you came back to security. How did that work for you? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was an interesting story because as you noted, I spent 26 years in law enforcement. And as I was looking at retiring, one of the things that did interest me, obviously, is the parallels and similarities between security work as well as law enforcement work. And it was certainly an interest of mine. And I was fortunate enough to acquire a position within the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, which is state. And at that time, I assumed the role of emergency management coordinator, where I was involved overseeing the security program, but more specifically involved in overseeing the emergency management aspect of responsibility for the campus itself.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, Paladin Security were our boots on the ground at that time. So I was a client at that time, and
wow.
Paladin Security was our vendor providing security services for us.
That's amazing. Now that you mention it, it's like, what's your kind of like experiences working with Paladin as a client and now as part of the team? Like how is that for you?
You know, one of the things that stood out for me working with the Paladin executive team was that I loved the way they treated their people. And you know, and sometimes that sounds like a very cheesy cliche, but I certainly, you know, from my personality standpoint, is that treating people with dignity and respect is overarching for me. That's a theme that I operate in. And I was able to see on a regular basis that Paladin team supported their people. They treated them fairly. They treated them with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And my relationship working from the client provider or the client and you know, within the vendor world was that the people I was working with spoke highly of the executive team for Paladin Security. And on a day-to-day basis, I saw it. I was engaged in multiple projects with the Paladin team. One specifically that I could speak about is that, you know, the Paladin executive team, as well as the Paladin program developers, they developed specifically for me an evacuation program. Now that program was utilized on a yearly basis by myself as a platform to teach over 225 volunteer evacuation wardens.
Oh, wow.
It was the epitome of what I would describe as a professional program. Supplied the foundation for being prepared within the campus itself, ensuring that we were meeting training requirements, and then on essence as well, there was a foundation for us to verify and validate the information that we were sharing by way of development of a quiz and training program, just to make sure that our people were aware of the expectations and being able to validate that information.
Now, let's go back to your experience in law enforcement. I want to talk about, Shane, how did your experience in security help you transition into law enforcement, and maybe talk about those transferable skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on a day-to-day basis, you know, one of the key elements that will aid you in any sort of first responder experience is those abilities to communicate, the ability to active listen. And, you know, that was one of the core foundations that as I spent time developing my skills, gaining experience within the security industry, is that you were asked to do pretty much everything a law enforcement member is asked to do, just not with the tools on the belt to do it. And that was by way of, you know, as you assess the needs and the merits of what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis within the security industry, you're having to understand the human dynamic, those abilities to listen actively, process what's being said, make decisions on what would be the best decision at that time. And often, 9 times out of 10, through active listening, you would make the right decision because you're actually hearing what people are needing from you as a resource or as a support mechanism. And I used a lot of that as I entered into law enforcement. I was providing examples as to interactions where, you know, within my security experience that I could fall back on. There was many of them. Many times was I capable of saying, you know, here's another example. Here's another example. But it's active listening, problem solving, and being able to use those tools to fully understand what it is that people need from you. There is no doubt that those skills are transferable to law enforcement all the way through.
Definitely. And I think those skills are like a good example of transferable skills that can help you into law enforcement. Now, what would be your advice for anyone looking to join the force? Because a lot of people in the security industry, I mean, it is a great stepping stone into law enforcement. So maybe talk about a bit about like your policing career and what your advice is for anyone looking to, you know, follow following your steps kind of thing, or anyone looking to, you know, move from security into law enforcement, or even just join security for the first time with that career path in mind of transitioning to law enforcement.
Yeah, I think the biggest advice that I could provide would be, number one is that law enforcement wants to see that you're directly involved in your community, that you're a member of your community, that you're participating, whether it be as a volunteer or as a coach or as as a mentor at your church or, in some capacity is be a participant in your community. Because at the end of the day, if you're joining law enforcement, you are going to be a member of your community and you're going to be supporting your community by way of your role and responsibilities.
Right.
Security does exactly the same thing. Security supports the community. Security supports the needs and the demands of society overarching. And it's those opportunities that I would suggest you embrace, not shy away from, but in essence, see them as an opportunity to expand your skill set, your knowledge, your awareness, your ability to take what would be seen as difficult situations and morph them into strong skill set development.
Nice. That was an amazing answer. That being said, Shane, Paladin has programs like Paladin to Policing. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Yes.
It's a specialized program. It's a very prestigious training program available for all Paladinians who want to, expand their skills that we were mentioning earlier, their knowledge and abilities to, improve their chances of securing a career in law enforcement. So they're meant to, be developed and delivered in cooperation with subject matters and experts like yourself in the law enforcement community. So I guess my question here is, what are your thoughts about specialized training programs like this? Do you think they make a difference? Do you think, why do you think training is so important when following a career path like this?
Yeah, there's no doubt that the Paladin to Policing program is instrumental in being able to assist and aid in enhancing skill sets to be very specific into entering law enforcement. Paladin provides them with the majority of the skill set that they're ready and effectively capable of using to be able to jump right into everyday policing, because we've targeted what it is that's specifically needed in order for an individual to be a very strong candidate or a very strong police officer.
Yeah,
I have a couple of examples here in Calgary that I've worked with a couple of young officers here within Paladin, mentored and coached them through, and we've done exactly that. We targeted the skill sets, the competencies that are necessary to make you a viable candidate, and we just worked really strongly on them, working through making sure that they had strong attachment to the community, working through with them, making sure that they were comfortable with their examples, making sure that they had the right ability to be able to showcase the skill set and those examples to ensure that those recruiters knew that they were coming with a full toolbox to the table.
So yeah, bottom line, training is a differentiator, correct?
Absolutely, it is.
Amazing. Well, let's move a little bit into the security industry as a whole. Now, coming back to security after 26 years in law enforcement, you have tremendous experience and you've seen a lot of like how the industry has evolved and how it was back in the 88 and nowadays. So where do you think, Shane, that the security industry is going? What kind of trends have you seen that could maybe impact the industry in the coming years? Is there anything related to law enforcement there? Is there anything, what are some of the trends that you've seen?
Sure. I think that COVID's had a tremendous impact on the security industry. I feel as though that we're still living through the after effect of COVID. Stress is high, inflation's high. And a term that I use, I feel as though that that we're still living in the COVID hangover. And as a result, the security industry is being faced with more social disorder than ever before. And as a result of that, what I'm seeing is that our partnerships with some of our clients is that they are identifying the same thing we've been identifying for years, which is that the security industry should no longer be seen as a stopgap or a pit stop for individuals moving into other careers, and that security itself can now be viewed as a career in itself. So when I say that, what's happening is that we're starting to create more competitive living wages. We're starting to enhance education requirements. And what that's doing is we're starting to see on a complete level, a higher level of security guard and a higher level of security program overarching.
Yeah. And I do agree with you. Like post-COVID world has changed the industry so much. But I'd like to just move into something more, a bit more personal, not personal, but a bit more about you. What do you love, or I guess what gets you out of bed every day, Shane, about working in this industry, and I guess at Paladin?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think the response that immediately comes to mind is the fact that I love the people here. And, it's not just a cliche. I mentioned that earlier. It's a value of mine. And for that reason, I can seriously, honestly tell you that I've never had 2 bad days in a row here. It's challenging. The industry is challenging. The market is challenging. But I think what keeps me going is the people. 100%, I can suggest that the people that I interact with, the people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, and I'm talking not just the executive, and I'm not talking about just branch staff, but when I stop by, at a site level and spend some time and have some interaction and have conversations, our people care. Our people care, and they love it. As simple as stopping by to have a coffee or a chat, the difference it makes. And so for me, I've made it a mandate for myself is that is something that I practice on a regular basis. And it brings me joy. It absolutely does. And then, when I originally assumed the position 3 years ago, at the ripe age of, roughly 57 years of ages, I wasn't sure how long was I really going to be here. But as time goes on and the more time I spend here, I have no immediate plans of leaving. It's just a position that I love, and it's a company I love, and I love the people.
I hear you. I guess now that you mentioned that you said that you have no plans of leaving, what's next for you, Shane? I guess as director of operations with full oversight in Calgary, what's next for you? Where do you want to move next? What any plans for the future? Well,
actually, absolutely. And I think at a local level, one of the tasks at hand is to establish and develop succession, and that's something that I'm working on actively on a regular basis here with the team in hand. I've got some tremendous client service managers as well as some site managers that I work with exclusively on a daily basis here. And I'm working on enhancing their skills and their subject matter expertise so that when the day does come is that I choose that, I'm going to move on and retire permanently, is that there's some options here as far as succession, because I do believe in, promotion within, as well as the fact of developing our pool of people from within. So that's something I'm working on a day-to-day basis. For myself, those are some of the immediate goals, but, kind of looking at it career-wise, I would suggest that, I certainly would relish an opportunity to expand my scope of responsibility, whether that would be, something locally, or whether that be something on a region, or, within the company in totality. But, there's so many just different things on a day-to-day basis that we do that no day is a duplicate to the one just prior to it. That's for sure. You can certainly say that everything's ever evolving and ever changing. And, as far as changes and looking at aspirations, just adjusting to what's happening around me and being fluid and flexible with what's happening, because anybody that thinks rigidly or is believes that the best practices existed long term is somewhat remiss, because this is an industry that's continuously moving and evolving. And for me, I'm doing the same. I'm continuously moving and evolving, and I refuse to remain rigid in any position or any thought process.
Amazing. Shane, was there anything that I didn't ask, anything that you wanted to share, anything that you got going on with you that you wanted to tell to our listeners? Because this has been such an amazing chat. Is there anything else that I missed?
I think the only thing would be, with respect to speaking to Paladin Policing, is that on a local level, what I've done is I've utilized an existing relationship with the Calgary Police Service, and as a result, what's happening is that we are seeing ourselves as Paladins being identified as a preferred security provider for deferrals for the Calgary Police Service. So in essence, what happens is that if a recruit goes into the process for hiring, and they deem that the individual is maybe just not quite ready, but it's very close to having that skill set and experience, They will defer them to us to employ them with Paladin Security and be able to spend a little bit of time with us and then enhance those skills that they've determined that maybe they're just a little shy on. And then eventually what you'll see is that those folks will end up going back into the recruiting process for the Calgary Police Service and be hired.
Oh, that's amazing. I bet that our listeners are very thankful to kind of hear all these tips and how it works if they're trying to follow this career path. Shane, this has been an illustrious chat, amazing chat. I've learned so much. I know our listeners are probably going to learn a lot too. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the Difference Makers, because you are a difference maker. And take care.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for tuning in with the Difference Makers. If you want to hear more about the ins and outs of the security industry from real professionals, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share. Also, check out new episodes on the first Tuesday of every month. Till next time.